Chaos will be stolen from their passage. So saith the wise Delano.
Welcome back to Mages and Murderdads. It's the show where we talk about the Baldur's Gate games and the games after them. I'm Cameron.
I'm Danny.
Icewind Dale, Episode 6. Icewind Jeff. Icewind Larry.
Mm-hmm.
This is the last episode.
This is the last. This is
Dale.
wrapping up the Icewind Dale experience.
Mm-hmm. Final chapter, and this is. I got so much to say.
Yeah.
Based on our previous episode, many things I said in that thing, and I just got cards on the table. Kind of astonished by the end of this game.
Go on. Yeah. What a. I didn't feel super surprised, but is that different?
Yeah,
from
I didn't
astonishment?
feel. Yeah. I mean, it didn't turn into Command and Conquer. So I was not shocked and appalled or. It was really weird when they just played like 65 hours of live news footage in the middle of the game. That was pretty shocking, I guess. The final chapter and the way this game finishes up, I wish the rest of the game had been this way. Because it's good. I mean, the rest of the game's pretty good. I've been kind of off and on it so far because, it's like, sometimes there wasn't a lot going on. But, I think the bar was never too low. But I think that this final chapter really raises the bar. Because what we get is Dorn's, lower Dorn's Deep. We get like a full, straight up dungeon, like a second edition style dungeon module.
Yes.
With a bunch of interconnected stuff, all kinds of people. There's a lot of like pretty in-depth conversations that can happen here. You get all this different stuff. There's a lot of interlocking quests, many of which I did not resolve in the right order, so I didn't get any benefit from it, but they at least existed and one could have if you did it. And then there's a pretty interesting ending part to it. The ending stinger is really good.
Yeah.
There's a cool boss fight. There's actually a couple cool boss fights in here. So this is all to say, I think that this chapter is as good as the best parts of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I think that this chapter feels so dense in a way that the Chapter 5 felt quite sparse.
Yeah.
Chapters
4 and 5.
Yeah. It really feels like I would have been okay with the average density of content of the game being slightly less than this, but being consistent across, all 20 hours. How much time have we spent on this game?
I don't know.
15,
Let me look.
15 to 20.
Good question. 22.5 hours is what I've got, and that's definitely with leaving it running occasionally or whatever on accident. So probably 20 hours somewhere in there.
Yeah, so I think that over the 20 in terms of the amount of stuff going on in the game, quite different, really quite a spectrum. And here at the end, I am happy to see that it's ending pretty strong and having like a lot of, as you said, interesting encounters, interesting dialogue stuff, but not getting too fancy. It's still an Icewind Dale game here. We're still resolving all of these problems by getting into a fight. But I don't know. How do you want to start? Do you want to just kind of recap the whole game plot?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll give it a shot.
It's going to be hard. I know it's going to be hard to kind of get all this together, but I believe in you.
Yeah. You're a group of adventurers who set out from East Haven. You are waylaid by a bunch of baddies like giants and such and separated from the caravan, and you can't go back to East Haven. And you arrive in Kuldahar. And in Kuldahar, there are a lot of problems, and there is this archdruid who runs the place, so it can't be that great of a place if an archdruid is in charge. And he, has you do a couple of tasks trying to get to the bottom of the bad things. The first couple are maybe some red herrings, and then we really figure out, we gotta take down this baddie and grab this artifact that I keep calling the Heart of the Mountain, but it is in fact legally distinct.
But it's in fact Hearthstone.
It's the but it is the big MacGuffin of the game. And we go and kill Yxaname in the hardest fight of the game. And
well, there's a fight in this last chapter that is could be that hard, but just because of some trickery, not because of just straight up difficulty.
Correct.
Yeah.
We kill Yxaname, and then we come back to Kuldahar, and we find out, oh my gosh, the archdruid that we thought we were helping out, it was this awful demon guy in disguise. Oh, shucks. And we thought we were doing a good, but we were really doing a bad when we were doing that demon guy's bidding. And then we find out we've got to get to the bottom of this artifact that we pulled, the Heart of the Mountain, and we have to go and talk to the ghost of Elf, and then he is like, oh, you got to go to a different place. And then we go to the old dwarven place, but there are no dwarves at all in Dorn's Deep. They're all gone. And instead, there's a bunch of baddies. And it turns out, really fast transition to finding out, more about the political structure of the big bads, state apparatus. We're just trying to, establish a new, some kind of new life in Dorn's Deep. And in this chapter, we head into Dorn's Deep, and we know we've got to take down some generals who all have a badge. And in a letter that we read from the big bad, we know that you gotta catch them all. You gotta get all 6 badges before you're admitted to the Pokemon University. And that's where we are. And I think we start this chapter already having 2 badges.
We have 2. And between the last episode and this episode, I took a little time and went back and got the one I was missing.
Literally 10 minutes, right?
It took about 20 because I had to fight some stuff. And but yeah, a small amount of time. Went back and did that. Now I'm ready. I'm on par. We go into Lower Dorn's Deep, and it's we go into this place. I don't think I've Durnell Anathema or something. Durnell Athea. I don't know what it's called, but it's a little bit weird. We go in here and we immediately talk to a thing that's called Voice of Durnell Athea or whatever.
Yeah, some kind of automata or whatnot.
It's some floating armor is what it is, and it's like, hey, bro. I am the spirit. The first conversation you have in this chapter is the foot is on the pedal to the floor, right?
Yes.
He's like, hey, guess what? I'm the soul of a paladin of Torm, maybe?
Ilmater.
No, he's not of Ilmater.
Oh, okay.
Because he's part of I think he's Torm because it's part of the trinity of good gods, basically. So Helm, Torm, and Ilmater, but he's not an Ilmater guy. And he's like, yeah, and I was here a bajillion years ago when the elves and the dwarves were fighting one another, and they were going to fight, and I was trying so hard to keep them from going to war with one another. And in the last moments, as they were charging each other across the battlefield, I threw myself in the middle because I'm a paladin, and I was dedicated to my oath, and they killed me. The elves chopped me up and the dwarves stomped me into the dirt. And as I felt my bones breaking, my spirit realized it would never leave this place until this problem is resolved. And it's this eternal God guilt that he has. He's I will never be able to go to the afterlife until this is resolved. And this is a sacred place. I'm going to kill you. Basically.
It's tough. You hate to see it,
Yeah, you hate to see a good paladin get turned into some sort of creature. And he says that, now this is where the Ilmater part comes in.
Yes, that's right.
Maybe, yeah. And so then he says, yeah, and I'm kind of being piloted around by a priest of Ilmater. And, he can see through me and, that kind of thing. And I was like, Chilkovar was like, hey, dude, have you thought about filing a form about this?
Yeah.
Have you talked to the proper authorities? And he was like,
and I think you can make the observation, this seems a little out of character for a priest of Ilmater to be doing something like this.
Yeah, it seems no good. And he goes, well, I don't know what to tell you. He's doing it, and that seems appropriate to me because I'm cursed. And
you're going to have to get me, 3 copies of paper evidence to show that the person controlling me is not a priest of Ilmater, because otherwise I'm going to keep coming after you.
Yep, basically, that's what he says. And so, yeah, this thing attacks you, and when you enter into new regions, it'll respawn and attack you, and if you rest, it will respawn and attack you.
Yes, it will turn from like a dialogue entity.
Yeah.
And it will like reanimate and turn back hostile. And it will usually, if you rest, there's like one, it's like, so long as I cannot rest, you shall not rest. And then he attacks you again.
Yep. And you're like, again?
Again? Yeah, again.
And then he attacks you. Yeah, so that's like kind of happening everywhere. And he tells you about this maybe revered brother Pokelin.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, revered brother Pokelin is here. He's like the head priest of Ilmater. And then he says all this stuff, and he's like, the power that fuels me is through blinded and silent slaves who have had their tongues cut out. And that's when my character was like, that doesn't really sound like an Ilmater thing. That sounds pretty bad.
It's a little off-brand.
It's a little off-brand for doing that kind of stuff. And he was like, I don't care. I'm cursed. I don't have strong opinions on it. Boo-boo-boo.
Sometimes you get cursed.
And so, anyway, so you just start running around and start doing stuff. And it kind of starts as a hub. There's a lot of salamanders here to fight.
We're in Fireland. We just got out of Iceland with the ice salamanders. Now we're in Fireland, and there's fire salamanders, and they're fine.
Yeah, what's the order? They weren't particularly difficult to kill. There were some weird difficulty spikes that are not super difficult. This was mostly just like a time-consuming chapter more than it was like a hard chapter, I would say.
There were definitely more fights where I had to actually reload in this one. So I'll give you like the broad strokes, and we can think about where we want to focus next. So we got, first up, fire area. There are fire giants, and they're kind of the badge holder here is named oh gosh, she is named, I kill her very quickly, so Melania. She's Maiden Ilmadia.
Yeah, Ilmadia.
Mm-hmm. And
she did not talk to me.
She did not talk to you.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, she did talk to you.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she gives like this whole scheme. They're like,
nope. No, she doesn't.
She what?
Not for me.
Oh. Well, so if you approach this lava area with all these fire giants, if you don't pick a fight with the fire giants, they'll tell you where you can find Maiden Ilmadia. Mm-hmm. And you can go up to her, and she, as long as you haven't aggroed anything, she will just spill her guts and be like, yeah, we're disassembling the forge here. And you can see like these buildings around have like chunks taken out of them because they're building a giant boat. And the idea is that you're going to just ram that boat at the end of the lava flow down here. And apparently on the other side of this cavern wall is a dark elf city called Rilioven. Riluven. And yeah, she gets racist and says they're schemers. Yeah. And we'll see, we know how they're resistant to magic. Well, let's see if they're resistant to lava and 200-pound broadswords. So she's just going to take out this dark elf city.
Okay.
And yeah, you can be like, it basically just comes down to, hey, we just want your badge. And it felt like I did not see a way to get this badge without without killing her. So I initially initiated combat like in the middle of all the giants, and that wasn't that great. So I just worked my way over to her by killing giants.
Yeah, as soon as I talked to those giants and they were like, yeah, our boss is over there, you can go talk to her, I thought, well, I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I start fighting her, then I got a bunch of giants behind me.
Yeah.
That sounds like a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started killing the giants.
Yeah. And did she eventually like run over?
Well, I went back and forth. I did a classic Fallout 2 maneuver in which I killed one giant, went into the previous room, slept for 16 hours, went forward, killed a fire giant, went backward, slept for 16 hours. So I did that a few times, and eventually she ended up there, but it basically turned into me summoning like a crap load of monsters, a full 6 monsters, hasting them up, chanting them up, and then sending them off screen to go fight. And I think I eventually ended up charging her. Oh, no, actually, what ended up weirdly happening with her at that point is that I killed a bunch of fire giants, and there were probably like 4 stacked up at the door. And when I left and went and rested and came back, they would always reset, but not by very far. So they were kind of within visible distance. And so so I'd kill 1 or 2 at a time, leave, rest, come back. And the really weird thing that happened the last time is I probably had like 4 on screen. And then I left, rested, came back, and they just despawned. They were just gone. And so then she was totally by herself. And then, I just kind of rolled the whole team up on her and killed her that way. It was pretty weird. Yeah.
But anyway, so that was probably the easiest badge. Yeah, I would say, for me, easiest badge of this chapter.
Okay.
Next up is you can kind of progress by going north from this lava area. And this is where all of these... it seems like this is the nexus of that, animated suit of armor, that undead paladin. This is how he keeps getting brought back, because you have like a pentagram almost of these shielded priests of Ilmater being like, we're going to get you.
Wow. So the second area you did was the final area.
Yeah.
This is the final area. Like in the hierarchy of where you go to these things. Because the way you get to the next part of the game is through this area. So you did this one second, which has got to be pretty interesting and weird.
Yeah, it was, because it's literally like the door with all of the keys, right? Yeah. Or the stairwell with all of the badge, markers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did this next, and it was great because the animated suit, the paladin thing, stopped bothering me after that.
Yeah, that would have been great if I'd known about that. I would have done that first if I could have. Sure. I killed that thing 10 times, easy.
Oh, I bet. And it takes a while, too. He's tough.
Yeah, he's pretty strong.
But this room had a bunch of greater mummies, and I think that this room would probably be hardest if you had to fight everything, but you can just kind of, scooch into the fog of war, wait for one thing to aggro you, pull them back. Yeah, so I did that with... God, there's a lot. There's like 6, 7 greater mummies in this area. And
I did this one last, and it was still pretty hard. Like, it took a couple reloads to figure out like what the best thing was, particularly because each little like priest of Ilmater who's in like a little immortality bubble, they're surrounded by like a bunch of bone golems.
Yes.
And like, those died to 1 fireball each or 2 fireballs, but still that's time consuming, and that's like cast time as you're being attacked. So it was pretty wild. But I really thought this was like a real D&D area of like, here's where all the priests are controlling all the undead, in their big pentagram things.
Yeah. So that's fun, and like I said, I end up finding like places where you can slot in the badges, and I note, I've got looks like I've got 3 to go. So,
in that room you've got per diem.
Oh no, that's true. Yeah, so you can free
per diem, the priest per diem.
Yeah, you can free them, and I guess they were all mind controlled. They were all controlled.
They were all emceed by an idol.
Mm-hmm. Like and actually, you have to fight the idol. Like it's an enemy.
Yeah, you gotta beat it up. And while they're like casting shit at you and summoning bone golems and stuff. Yeah, and that dude was like, oh, I was like in a dream. It was some real like Bloodborne stuff. He was like, I was trapped in a dream, where I was in like waist deep blood all the time, and Ilmater was making me do stuff, and I'd been like mind controlled by this other dude, Pokelin. He was like Pokelin, came and got us all and brought us here and made us do it. And did you talk to any of the other priests of Ilmater afterward?
They felt bad.
They did. They were like, please don't kill me. I was mind controlled.
Yeah.
I feel bad. I feel really bad about all this like murder that
they're never gonna recover from this.
No, God, no. The best option is to get like mind wiped.
Yeah.
That's the only thing, in the kind of like, like in the Civil War, like the only thing you could do is just like grit your teeth and have someone saw your arm off or whatever, right? Like that's just what you had. In the D&D, like dark fantasy, pseudo medievalism, the only option is like mind wiping.
You're on a horse. You're looking for the tallest tower you can to find like a wizard that you can give silver pieces to just wipe your memory.
Yeah, that really is it. You just got to ride through the countryside hoping you can find a big old tower. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, you've probably killed a bunch of wizards yourself.
I know. You're really regretting this.
Yeah. But that's what happens when you get mind controlled. I really did like that per diem. That's killing me. That's literally like looking around and being like, what's the character's name? What's the character's name? Oh, yes, Lamp the Wizard.
I'm telling you, it's the two modes, right? There were these...
Bookshelf the Wizard.
We looked at apparently one of the people in the game, like, oh, yeah, so-and-so, he came up with Yuxanime. He's got the best fantasy names.
Yeah, we did say that.
So
we did read that.
There's that guy who comes up with the Yuxanimes, and then there's apparently when he's out sick, you can tell when the development cycle, because then it's somebody looking down at a sheet, be like, well, Ted's out on business. He's getting extra money per diem. This priest.
Yeah, I guess the priest poster dude, priest blank check. Let's see, the wizard business card. Well, here's a great example of those. Because one of the characters, when did you do Malekith? Did you do Malekith next, by any chance?
Do you mean Malavon?
No, I don't. There's Malekith and Malavon, and those are two separate dudes.
Okay. Then that means that I did Malekith last.
Okay, well, Malekith has we can talk about it in just a minute, but it was the most like one of those moments, right? Like Duke Belt, right? It was his name is Malekith, and his number one, bodyguard
Mariketh, by the way.
Mariketh, I'm sorry. Oh, Malekith is from Elden Ring.
An Elden Ring boss.
Sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Mm-hmm. But his number one dude is a halfling rogue named Seth. Just Seth hanging out.
There's somebody in here... one of his minions is named Fleesum.
There's like Fleesum and Jeezum. There's two dudes, and they're brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is when you really wish every like item had a more in depth, like there's more lore. I want the lore on Fleesum. Right?
I mean, there's a lot of lore in this game. Mm-hmm. If you're identifying items and reading that, there's a full 2 paragraphs for everything. Someone went hog wild in Icewind Dale.
Mm-hmm. But it's all about stuff that happened before Fleesum.
Right. It's the ancient. Well, you want to play the game that takes place 200 years in the future, where you don Fleesum's armor of getting smote by the ball spawn, of ball spawn hittery. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we can talk about Malavon first. I wanted to get my Seth bewilderment in here. But yeah, tell me about Malavon.
Yeah, so if you head from that kind of central hub room, you can go to a little garden with a bunch of myconids, and there's 2 Sverfneblin in the garden, and it's Callard and his son, and they are they're doing a sculpture, and they're actually making Marquette's sculpture. There, and kind kind of interesting dialogue from these two.
Mm-hmm.
Did you talk to these guys?
Yeah, I think this has the best, like I was saying at the beginning, not just like gameplay and architecture wise and like kind of it feeling like a real place. There's some verisimilitude here, but that like there's good NPC dialogue here, like really good storytelling stuff going on here. Yeah, he says he's a Svirfneblin, like all the gnomes are in this thing. I'm sure we'll talk about the gnomes in just a minute, but he's a Svirfneblin, and he's like, yeah, I'm having to build a statue of this evil guy here.
And you can say, wow, this is a really detailed sculpture. How'd you manage it without having, the subject here? And his response is something like, oh, well, when we Svirfneblin see a person's face, it becomes a block of stone. Inside every block of stone, there are a million faces. And by looking at a block of stone, we instantly know how to chisel away everything that is not the face we see in our minds. The only response is, really? And he was like, nah, I just he sent a picture.
Yeah, there's a sketch. Yeah, it's a weird, it's something in, Michael and my show, Homestuck Made This World. We often talk about like the early 2000s, like deflationary move.
The record scratch.
Yeah, right. The record scratch of comedy writing, right? Of like, here's all of this big stuff, boo, 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 and really here's a fart noise, right? Like, and the joke is that it deflates the entire like big apparatus, that no one takes anything too seriously. And here that thing is in like the year 2000. Yeah. And there's like actually quite a few of those over the course of this chapter. There were like 3 or 4 moments like that. And it's like, this is a dude who's been enslaved.
His son has had his tongue cut out.
Yeah, his son is enslaved and has had his tongue cut out. And this dude keeps being like, yeah, I'm doing this so my son can live, right? Like, it's a really like profound and kind of tragic story, well-worn fantasy stuff, not anything too shocking there, but like it as a little unit of a thing, totally of a piece, fits into the zone, really establishes some like very clear Manichaean stakes of like, there's good guys and bad guys here. And like, the Svirfneblin are good and caught in the middle in a really bad way. And it pays off in this like weird joke, and yeah, I didn't really care for that.
But anyway, there is kind of a branch here where you go into like this little town that's just like the streets are just strewn with umberhulks and minotaurs.
Yeah, it's because this whole area, the Lower Dorn's Deep, is like the township part of what used to be the dwarf city. Yeah. And so like each of these pieces are like, there's the temple that would have been there that people used. And then this is the artisans district, where like tradespeople were. And then there's, all kinds of other stuff too. But the forge itself, that, in the mines that fueled the forge and all that stuff. So, it's all ecologically of a piece with one another. And yeah, there's umberhulks fucking everywhere.
Yeah, umberhulks. And they're not that bad except the confusion. The confusion's a real bummer.
And the animation is different. Like, this is such a fine-grained complaint, but what are you coming to for this, if not for some very fine-grained comparison with other games made in the Infinity Engine? If you're not here for that, what are you here for? But in Baldur's Gate 2, number one, I like the Umberhulks in Baldur's Gate 2 way more than I do here. I like those like big purple bulbous dudes that kind of look like the creatures from the Dark Crystal. These are just big, like a little bit more humanoid beetles,
and they're dusty. They're not very they're not very vibrant,
not shiny in any way. And but in that game, you knew that you were having confusion cast on you from an Umberhulk because it shot this like purple disc. Yes. And you could be like, that person's getting confused. But in this game, the animation is like they like do an animation where they kind of stand up and then like a little field emanates on the bottom of your character. And there's like 5 million effects like that going on at any given time in a battle.
It's pretty hard out.
No, it doesn't stick out at all. And it's like golden colored too, which tends to be positive effects. So it's a little bit confusing in that way too. And so yeah, they weren't particularly difficult to fight, but they were really annoying. But yeah, and a bunch of blind minotaurs. Why are the minotaurs blind? Did you figure that out?
No, I didn't figure that out. I assumed that maybe they've adapted to like, are we in the Underdark here? I think so. We're like Underdark adjacent.
We're Underdark adjacent. I mean, this is playing really weird. I mean, I guess not that super weird, but it's interesting that I talked so much about the Icewind Dale novels in the previous episode, given where this episode is going to go. But, you know, this is the whole thing in the middle trilogy of the Icewind Dale stuff, or the Companions of the Hall, Drizzt Do'Urden books, is that, you know, I mean, Mithril Hall and Minzo Baranzan are on the same kind of like vertical plane, you know, and you're able to go from one to the other, and that's what's being set up here. Basically, is there's this drow city that's like way closer than those other two cities are, but it's right next door to the dwarves, and so yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of drow here hanging out, stuff like that. So yeah, this is Underdark adjacent for sure. So eventually, you work your way via persistence through the annoying Umber Hulks, and you get to Malavon's little house. His little compound, and bunch of Svirfneblin gardeners hanging out in here, and I believe these are like iron golems or some such. And when you confront him, he says, he basically is like, drop everything, or I'm going to kill all of these, you know, Svirfneblin I have in the room. Yeah, and if you drop everything, your character will like drop all of their equipment, like armor too. And then he just says, "I can't believe you did that," and he attacks you. Did you experience that? I did experience that.
Otherwise, it's a little complicated about the Svirfneblin hostage situation, because there are also. I tried to not kill them, but then an Umber Hulk attacked me, confused Balthazar. Balthazar attacked one Svirfneblin, and then they all turned hostile.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate to hear you had to kill those Svirfneblin.
It really was.
Kill those Svirfneblin. But, yeah, so I saw the way this was kind of like panning out. In a general sense, one of my strategies, you know, I took 2 or 3 swings at this, maybe 3 or 4 swings. One of my strategies was definitely just cast fireballs into the room, because I was like, oh, he's going to kill the Svirfneblin anyway, so it doesn't really matter here. That's not the strategy that ended up working for me. But I ended up summoning a bunch of monsters, sending them in. Summoning a bunch of undead, because he casts, it's the golems who cast like Cloud Kill or Stinking Cloud or something.
It's hard. It might have been like a triggered spell, because the way the fight was...
No, it's definitely the golems. Because when you fight them later, they also do it too. I think that's just because remember clay golems do that in Baldur's Gate 2. I think that's a golem thing.
Interesting.
Is they just like poop out a cloud every now and again.
Well, the way I ended up, because the way the fight is scripted, you fight Malavon and several golems in that room. They, if you don't spare the Svirfneblin, I couldn't figure out a way to spare the Svirfneblin, but they attack the Svirfneblin as well. A bunch of Cloud Kill goes off. You can rush Malavon and kill him. And then he appears in like the central room of the compound.
I love this. I thought this was so good.
And it was like, oh, it appears that you killed my simulacrum.
He's that kind of wizard.
He really is.
Initially, he's like, I'm going to kill all of these ones if you don't do what I say. Woohoo! Yes. And you're like, Malavon, come on, buddy. And then he definitely, once you kill him, is like, that was simply my other guy. Woohoo! I'm this guy now.
So the problem I had is like, I had all my people like in the center, and he would pop in, and you would attack him, and then he would despawn.
Yeah,
he starts teleporting around. So the way I figured it out was I have Balthazar initiate the combat in the far east room with the iron golems. Balthazar berserked, took down the fake Malavon. Everyone else is in the far west room, right? So Balthazar runs out of the room with the golems. They're killing the Svirfneblin. And Balthazar goes to reunite with the team, No, he initiates dialogue with like the guy who appears in the center, who's like, aha, that was just my simulacrum. The first place he always teleports is back to that west room. He teleports into the middle of all of my guys. The Iron Golems are making their way to the west room, but I'm able to kill Malavon before he teleports a second time.
Ooh. Efficient.
Yeah, very efficient. I was actually this fight, like I probably tried it 5 times. I was like, oh, I'm really like the attrition, and especially Malavon starts casting summon monsters 4 if you let him go too long. I actually changed the difficulty to easy, and I beat the game. After I adopted this strategy, I beat it the first time, and then I went to turn the difficulty back up, but it turns out when I loaded, the difficulty reset, so I did beat it on the actual difficulty. It was just adopting the new strategy changed it for me.
I didn't have very much trouble with this, but also that's a difference in like number of spellcasters I have versus what you have, right? I think the way I got him down is fireballed, sent a bunch of in like skull trapped a couple times in order to kill the golems off, but that's like running into his magical defenses or whatever. And so then I breached him, and breach just blows off whatever remaining stuff was there, and then he died, respawned. Weirdly enough, my whole team was just standing there. Like I killed him first try when I got him to like phase 2 essentially, and my whole team was just standing there, so they just turned around and started hitting him with their swords, and that like took him to half health, and he teleported, and then I think my rogue just shot him. I think it was because did you do that weird little tower that's just full of archers that shoot you?
Yeah. And did you talk to the little girl, the little Surf Neblin girl? Yeah, I
did. And so the only reason I bring it up is when you kill all those archers, they have +3 arrows. +3 arrows. And so putting those on my archer, and he just like booped him down.
I've got a great story about those arrows at the end of the episode.
I also have a very good story for you. Just putting little plink plonk in there for everybody. I also have a good story for the end. Unfortunately, I really wish I had been able to do the Malavon thing the other way. Did you ever find the Golem manual in not Malekith?
I did. It was after I had already done this. So
same.
So this is just a way to like deactivate these golems. And I'm looking at the footage again. They are the one that does the cloud kill.
Yeah. Because just other golems in BG2 do it. So I know it's got to be some ability for them. But yeah, there is a later on in another part of the dungeon, you can find this manual that's a golem manual, and when you read it or look at it, it says like it's full of command words for golems, and so it's like, oh yeah, of course. Damn, I wish I could have had them attack him or do something. I bet I could have done some cool stuff with it, but. Anyway, we cleared it. It was pretty cool. I like that. So also he lives in a dome for some reason. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
He's a scientist. Did you see that? He's like an evil drow wizard scientist. He's like doing experiments to create myconid people.
They're people of learning.
Drow wizards. Yeah, that's true. But they got all their Swerf Neblin lab assistants who've had their eyeballs cut out. It's awful.
It's
awful stuff.
It's not good. The good type of science.
No,
which is like new Pop-Tart flavors.
Oh, that's the good stuff. Actually, weirdly enough, the drow produced the Pop-Tart.
Oh no!
Everyone hates it. No one wants to think about the fact that the drow, a group who thrives on conflict and chaos and murder, worships a whole pantheon of people and gods who just can't help but stir shit up all the time and, make deals with demons, live in the abyss, all that kind of stuff. They do some really evil things, but goddamn, they made the Pop-Tart. And how mad can you be about that?
Not very.
You can't be mad about it. You can't be mad about the Pop-Tart.
So we're running out of badge keepers here.
Yep.
Right?
We got two left.
2 left. Who's your next badge holder?
Oh no, one left. One left.
Oh, so we had 2. Then we picked up Fire Giant. Then Malavon. There's 6
and then
total,
the priest.
Right?
No, and then the priest. Perdium.
Oh, the priest had 1. There you go.
Yeah, you keep forgetting Perdium, and so the only one left is Malekith, but it's not Malekith. Mariketh. Oh, I'm so sorry. And he lives in the little tower or in the little building where the statue maker was.
Yeah.
And you just, I mean, it's pretty simple. You like go up into it. It's like a real building. It's when you fight Blurgith and Zergith or whatever their names
It
are.
is. There's like other people that live here, like his servants and whatnot. There's definitely like a drow woman who it's implied that she's being abused.
It's not implied. It's explicitly said.
Yes. Well, I didn't talk to her as much as you did, maybe. But
Oh yeah. If you talk to her, she's like, oh yeah, it's. I mean, it's very much like. What if you had someone very quickly bang out like an abused woman narrative, right? So she's like, oh,
I fell down some stairs, I'm pretty sure.
Basically, she says something to that effect, and then you're like, oh, really? And she's like, well, it was my fault. I made him angry.
Oh, see, I did not. I think Balthazar has zero charisma. So,
You didn't even get beyond that. But she basically says, I mean, there's a cool story here. I mean, not that part of it, but the whole thing is that she's Malavon's sister. I didn't write her name down. I didn't write down very many names for this thing, but she's Malavon's sister. And basically what happened is that, God, what is his name? Not Malekith, but... Mariketh. Mariketh is a human, and he came as part of a group to the Drow city to recruit, to go into alliance with the Drow. And actually, you know what? It might have been Pokwin. Anyway, someone did. One of these people went to make a deal. And the only Drow who was like, oh, that's a good idea, was Malavon. And so when she found out that Malavon was going to betray the Drow, basically, and go join up with this, this group of lieutenants under Pokwin, she, was like, what? And then he kidnapped her. And this word is not used, but it seems like basically sold her or gave her to Mariketh in order to like smooth over some relationships here. And so she is being both kept physically and I think magically is the implication. Malavon has put some sort of curse on her to keep her physically here and entrap her. She also wanted me to make a deal to not hurt Mariketh, and I would not do that. And so I did not progress any further in what seemed like maybe an opportunity to free her.
Interesting. The enemies you encounter here, it's a bunch of thieves, and the AI was interesting. They were like zeroing in on my lowest HP character.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. There's some. Okay, so you do all this. You go to the next floor. There's like a throne room and then like two smaller rooms. One of the smaller rooms, Mariketh is there, and he's a thief and he's very canny, right? Yeah. He's like, hey, guess what? We are, I don't want to die here. I'm not particularly attached to this cause. What's up? And I could straight up through dialogue be like, drop all your weapons, drop your armor, give me your badge, leave, and you can leave. And I tried to fight him one time, and it didn't seem worth it. It seemed so much more high stress to do that. So I just let him go.
Oh, wow. So no consequences for letting him go.
Oh, no, there's consequences. I didn't say there were no consequences.
Okay.
But partially, too, because she said to me that she really thought that that his like worst habits were happening here, and that he would not be the way he was if he were not in a position of power here in this like fortress. And so I was thinking, all right, well, maybe he could be not as much of a shithead. And then I was also thinking, this dude's going to die. He's never going to make it back to civilization from here. We're like 40 hours away from the nearest town. This dude's dead. So I didn't feel too bad about it. So, how did you resolve this then?
He made me that offer and I killed him.
Oh, okay. Well, how did the combat work for you then?
It was pretty easy. He died immediately. He evaporated. And
what about the next people who showed up?
They got my caster down low, but the AI on both sides of this game is like kind of weirdly sticky, and they were just obsessed with chasing Barry, my sorcerer.
Yeah.
As I manually navigated Barry around the room, and they, had their lunch eaten by the rest of my party.
Because about 20 thieves unstealth and start hacking you apart.
Oh, so here's the thing. I think I killed all the stealthed thieves in this.
I think they spawn in, or they come in from the other room. Let me re-narrate this.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just different. you let him go, and he's like,
And
he says, okay, here's all my stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, actually, can I keep this ring? I'd really like to keep this ring on this string around my neck. And you could say, no, give me your ring. Or you could say, all right, fine, take it.
I know what that ring is.
Yeah, that ring, if you put it on, immediately petrifies the person who puts it on. And that to me, I was like, this is RPGs.
Yes.
Like, this is good stuff. Like, this is such a, like, if this should be everyone who is, like, running a game, of D&D should give this a shot at some point. Of, like, having a guy who like there's a peaceful resolution, but he's going to get you on the way out.
Yeah,
he's like a conniving thief. I really like that. I thought that was good. It's extremely punitive, like overwhelmingly punitive to a way that it would force you basically to reload unless you had like a stone to flesh scroll or something. So I like that a lot. Then he leaves, and then about 25 thieves unspawned, as well as Seth, who hits like a truck and can like one shot a caster. Like, no question in my mind. And so I had to like try that part 2 or 3 times just to make sure I could clean everything up. And
it seems harder to let him go, to be honest, because I didn't have like the unstealth thieves when I attacked him. It was just his little gang, his little kind of party.
Yeah, there's like a wizard who's there.
He's like from the society. Member of the Society of the Kraken is that wizard's name. And it's awesome.
What's up with that? I didn't, I wanted to look that up. Let me, Kraken Society member, Icewind Dale. I'm so curious about that because I didn't get any other stuff. Oh, you know what? It just looks like it's like a thing. Oh.
This is like a thing in Icewind Dale area.
There's a book called Secret Societies that you can read. If you talk to Seth, you can say that you're part of the Kraken Society?
Oh.
Interesting.
So it does seem like there were more non-combat options available.
There were quite a few,
I think that the rest of this game really primed us in the other direction.
Why would you go through 20 hours of just like fighting dudes to get to the final chapter, which is like not all fighting dudes. And, so I like totally get if like someone did not have the desire to make it all the way through. But I thought the last chapter was pretty interesting. So that's all of the badges. Now, you have not mentioned the gnomes at all, like the little gnome village. You didn't do that side quest?
No, I did not do the gnome side quest.
Huh. On purpose? Did you discover it or you just didn't discover it?
I found a bunch of gnomes. I only talked to like the first gnome I saw, and the first gnome I saw was basically it was the same
Typical
thing.
Balthazar, only talking to the first gnome he sees.
Yeah, the first named one. And he just gave like the reason why I didn't engage further with the gnomes is that gnome was like, "Oh boy, we're miserable and it's awful." And what you got to do? You need to defeat so-and-so. And then once I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm going to do that anyway, gnome. You're welcome in advance.
Well, so he has 2 things he tells you to do. His name is Tarnhelm. Mm-hmm. And he actually has 2 things he says. The first thing he says is, hey, you got to beat that salamander who's oppressing us. Because he sucks. Mm-hmm. And basically it just means you got to kill all the salamanders. Easy to do, because you're right. You're going to do that anyway. The other thing he says is that we're hungry as hell down here. We're mining all day. We're enslaved. We have no food. No one feeds us. They don't give a shit about us. They're awful. These drow inhumans and this priest of Ilmater. Bring us some food. So you can loot a bag of potatoes.
Wow.
In Mariketh's house, and you can bring it back. Did you talk to the cook in Mariketh's house?
I did. He begged me not to kill him, and I did.
Yeah, he's like, I'm the cook. And you're like, are you really the cook? He's like, yeah, I am. Look at my character model. And I was like, all right, I guess that's true. But
a lot of cooks that served in the Wehrmacht, apparently.
Well, I guess that's true, yeah. I mean, look, he's still doing all this stuff. There's only like 11 people who are not enslaved down here, and he's one of them. Mm-hmm. So...
But also, I'm just saying, sometimes, like, when the chips have all, fallen where they may, and then the post-interview is like, so what was your role in the in Reverend Brother Pocklin's, army? Oh, I was a cook. You talk to all the survivors. They're all cooks.
Yeah. Well, I was an architect. I don't know what to tell you. Here, speaking of that, something really interesting happens when you talk to Perdium about Pokelin. He says that slowly but surely, after they were recruited, Pokelin became, quote, more fascist.
Hey, oh my God, he says the word fascist.
He says the word fascist, and I was like, is there fascism in the Forgotten Realms?
Jean-Jacques Rousseau is a historical figure in the Forgotten Realms.
I thought it was such a weird moment of like, someone didn't comb through this too carefully. Because generally these games are pretty good about, keeping a, Portal Fantasy-esque gap between our world and that. They have systems of domination, systems of oppression, systems of violence, whatever, but they're kind of talked about in their own terms, even if they are allegorical or whatever. Right?
You'll sometimes see like the word dictator thrown around in the Forgotten Realms. But that's about as like on the nose as they'll get in terms of...
Yeah, because it'll be like, oh, there's a Pasha in Kalimshan, and the way that they work is blah, 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 and like immediately you're like, okay, well, this is like analogical to some other thing.
We're going to be talking about Kalimshan in a little bit.
Are we?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, that's interesting. And so, but anyway, that's all to say. So yeah, if you follow the Gnome Quest, you do that. He tells you that you need to rescue Bjorn. Bjorn is in the mines, in the deepest part, down by the forge. If you complete that part of the thing, you can rescue Bjorn. He leaves. He goes back to... Oh, no, you know what? That's not Bjorn. That is someone else. It doesn't matter. It's a different gnome. Mm-hmm. Once you go get that gnome and you come back, and you have the food that you have. Oh, you know what? I'm messing up the chronology here entirely. Sorry.
It's fine, yeah.
Get food, bring to gnomes. Gnomes say, hey, we have a hidden village here. Like a straight up hidden village. The Umber Hulks are looking for it. And at this point, I was like, I killed Malvorn, so the Umber Hulk's probably not coming. And he was like, yeah, he's dead, but the Umber Hulks are still running around. They're like burrowing around, feeling for vibrations. Worse for Neblin, they can't use magic to find us, but they can feel our vibrations. So you have to hunt out the Umber Hulks, and then you can go to our secret village. And so I went and hunted out the Umber Hulks, and it spawned 12 of them, something like 15, a huge number. They spawned in waves of 3. And if you don't kill them fast enough, they just all pile up. So It's actually a pretty cool little encounter. It's very what would then become much later a Mass Effect style, point defense essentially. Mm-hmm. Very uncommon for these isometric games. And so you do that. You go to the village. Bjorn lives there. He's their priest, and so he's been leading the resistance. He's the person who tells me to go get the other gnome who is in the mines. And that guy is a magic user. He might also be a priest. And he is going to disguise the village's vibrations. So no one can find them until, I get rid of everyone here and then they can leave. And you talk to him, you get some quest XP. It's a cool little, sub-quest of stuff. Now, let me blow your mind.
Okay.
There's an additional little part of this.
Oh, wow.
Because when you go to this Neblin town, this little hidden village, there's a drow there whose name is Nim. Do you know about Nim?
No, I never met Nim.
Oh, this is kind of this is one of the cooler parts of the whole thing. So Nim is you're why is there a drow here? And he's like, well, I'm a drow trader. I've been a drow trader for 400 years. I do trade with everyone. I think that's good. The Neblin, they're good at making gems and finding gems, and that's what they like doing. And I like selling gems. So it's good. I'm happy to provide them equipment. I don't give a shit about the drow. Who cares? Which is very in character for the drow. In a general sense, right? Mm-hmm. And so so you're talking to him, and he's like, yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, and you can ask him some questions, and eventually he's like, yeah, and you know what? The best part, why I really like Dorn's Deep is that when the dwarves were here, they were terrible at security. And you can be like, well, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, I was able to... When the dwarves were here, I was constantly going into their vault and stealing all their magic items and selling them to goblinoids. And so then you're like, wait a minute. you caused like this whole thing that killed all the elves and the dwarves? And he's like, yeah, I guess so. I don't know. Like I was getting their stuff and selling it. Yeah, it was fine. So yeah, the end result of that is that there was basically one drow dude going in and stealing stuff and selling it to the goblinoids. And that's the thing that made the dwarves distrustful of the elves and the elves distrustful of the dwarves.
I mean, it's still the dwarves' fault. That kind of security breach,
right. They probably shouldn't have allowed that drow to sneak in and do that. Sure. I don't think they were doing due diligence. But point being is the elves said
the elves thought that the dwarves were directly, trading with these goblins. The truth, it turns out, is the dwarves were just not.
They left the door open.
They left the door open, and then a dark elf came, got the stuff, and sold it.
Yep. And so you can be like, I gotta kill you. I don't, I feel like it's the least I can do is kill you. And that's like a dialogue option. It's like, look, there's just you caused a lot of suffering, so sorry. And yeah, I killed him.
Wow.
And, I guess in a general sense, unfortunate because he is a straight up merchant. And if I had maybe been a little less forthright with my intent to murder him, I could have sold like my entirely full inventories to him, but I didn't. I just killed him. So didn't get a chance to sell. There are a couple other merchants running around. There's one who sells a full set of Umber Hulk armor.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it was not an upgrade for anyone, but it was neat looking. And so I bought it for 15k gold and couldn't get rid of it again. So that was pretty interesting. But yeah, so that's like a little side quest that happens. It's a cool little whole thing that really built out what the Spurf Neblin were up to and like what the capabilities of the stuff was. It ended a quest that would have been a big question mark probably for you as you were finishing the game of like, well, I guess we just never find out what happens there. So it was good. I thought it was cool, but after doing all of that stuff, I had all the badges.
Yeah, no, that does sound like a good quest, and maybe something that was maybe missing in some previous chapters is that kind of a quest that really fleshes out more of the history and ecology of the area, quote unquote. But yeah, so you head up, and I am ready for a climactic final encounter when I head up these stairs, to be honest. There's something also about the map. You pop in, and you can... it like gives you some space to like put your positive magical effects and buffs on before you get into the fight.
It's like getting into a Dark Souls boss arena.
Yes.
Right? Like, what's up.
And also the scale of the area. It's not a big area. You're like, this is a boss fight. And we meet the Reverend. We meet the Reverend, Paukalin. And I rushed through this dialogue, to be honest, but he does talk about how grateful he is that we took out Yxaname. We can tell that this is the entity that impersonated the Archdruid.
Arendelle.
And so he talks about how, wow, your brevity is in stark contrast to how long-winded Yxaname would be. So it's a welcome change to hear this from an enemy. And we get into a fight. Did you go deeper with Paukalin?
Yeah, I did, but really his whole shtick is just like, and in chapter 1 I did this, and in chapter 2 I did this, and in chapter 3 I did this, and in chapter 4 I did this, and in chapter 5 I did this, and here we are in chapter 6. He really moves through every major boss you have fought and explains how they're like in the plot,
and how he's related to them.
Yes, and I mean the shtick is that he sicked you on Yxaname to get the Hearthstone, God. And he did not expect you to take it to the elf guy, basically, is like what he says. I didn't expect for you to do that, but you did that, and I guess you're here now, but it ultimately doesn't matter, because he reveals that here, right? He's like, because I have Crinchinabon, the Crystal Shard, but you might have clicked through that.
No, he didn't talk about the Crystal Shard.
Holy shit, he's got Crinchinabon. I mean, obviously you find it out very soon, but he explains it to you. He's like, look, basically what I've been doing up here this whole time is scouring around and looking for Crinchinabon the whole time. Now I've got it. and it makes the Hearthstone look like little poo-poo pee-pee garbage, little baby garbage. And so here we go, buddy. Let's fight.
This is the least... This is the most anticlimactic fight I've ever done.
Oh, this is a pretty hard fight for me. I had to like swing at it about 5 times or so, and I had to like try some different strategies of like summoning creatures and doing stuff because the ads were really getting my guys. But I mean, ultimately, it was nothing compared to like anything in Throne of Ball. It was relatively simple and straightforward once I kind of figured out what to do with my guys. But
I am looking at the footage, and all my melee people are engaging with the Reverend, and my ranged, my archer is attacking. My Scald is doing nothing other than standing with her harp symbol highlighted, giving everybody like +2 to AC and attack. And I am navigating Barry, the sorcerer, to like summon some enemies. He summons one group. He's about to finish the cast on the second summon, and I go immediately into a cinematic. And I was just like, what? And yeah, I hit this, narrator fellow talking about in the heat of battle, the twisted priest of Ilmater stumbled, gripping his chest as if mortally stricken.
Yeah.
And we get a couple more pages of like illustrations here. Very old school kind of who was the not in the exact style, but what was the name of like the famous illustrator of like Conan the Barbarian?
Frog from Frog and Toad?
Frog from Frog and Toad.
Yeah, like Frog and Toad, the two creatures who hang out together, best friends. I think it's Frog. I think Frog did all that.
Frog did all of the
the illustrations for Conan the Barbarian. What's it called? Call the Conqueror. He did all those. Yeah.
But anyway,
Frog from Frog and Toad.
A lot of like black and white illustrations, like dark fantasy, as we see like the adventurers fighting, and then we get zapped back to frozen East Haven in like in a very Return to the Shire move here.
Scouring of the Shire move.
A scouring of the Shire move, yes.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, we are back in East Haven. Before us, instead of the Temple of Tempest, it is a big old frozen tower, made of ice and whatnot.
Nope, it's not.
It's not?
It's made of crystal. It's the Crystal Shards Tower.
Yeah. Well, no, now I know that, but at the time...
Rose,
a massive tower of crystal, sure. Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I gotta hold our feet to the fire on this one. We gotta be accurate about the uses of Crin Shinobon and how it little did you know that a mere few years later Artemis and Triri and Jarlaxle would be in the lair of a red dragon with 2 characters from the Cleric Quintet, a totally other separate series of novels, and they would be there attempting and fighting against a Mind Flayer, a Psionicist Drow, and a Drow Wizard from, Ched Nasad. And they would all be hanging out together, attempting to shroud Crin Shinobon in a globe of darkness while it was smashed and lit up by an ancient red dragon's breath. That all happens.
Apparently.
It does. I'm here to tell you that happens. That happens in a novel.
There are a bunch of Cyclopses here.
What are they about?
They're just opportunists.
Oh, you know what? This is another thing that maybe like will make the rest of the game make a bit of sense though for everyone. Is that basically Crin Shinobon's? It has a couple powers, right? One is it loves making big crystal towers of itself. The other is that it's sneaky and greedy, so it like mind controls people subtly. And the third one is that it also mind controls people not subtly. And so anytime someone has Crinchinaban, it starts talking to monstrous creatures in the area and starts bringing them under the command. So it builds armies. That's like part of what it does, is like an artifact of power. So that's why all these like weird creatures are constantly around, like all these frost salamanders, fire salamanders, giants,
And
cyclopses,
yeah.
all the lizard folk, all that stuff, right? The reason that they all kind of are implicitly and explicitly supportive of this goal is that that's kind of what Crinchinaban does as a item.
Yeah. Did you talk to Jonan here?
Is that the drunk guy?
No, that was the guy who in the prologue, he was hearing this singing.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, I got a +5 longsword from him.
Whoa, cool. Yeah,
so this started back in the prologue, and there was this guy, Jonan, he's this fisherman who was like, oh, I keep hearing these songs in my dreams. It's really bothering me. I can't sleep. And you find this woman, this strange blue-skinned woman named Elisa there. And you mentioned Jonan to Elisa, and she's like, oh, I fell in love with one of Jonan's ancestors, and I've been trying to contact Jonan in his dreams because she wants to return his ancestor's sword to him, but she can't physically meet him. So she asks you to bring the sword to Jonan, and you get the shattered blade, and you can return to Jonan with it and tell him about like the reason why his dreams are getting weird. And so if you tell him that Elisa loves him and wants him to have the sword, you lose the sword and you get some experience. You can lie and do like the evil path and just like return to Elisa and said, oh yeah, I gave him the sword. But anyway, if you don't drive Jonan away and you like actually give him the sword, the shards of the sword, he apparently repairs it. He gives it to you, and it's like a sweet +5 sword.
Cool.
Yeah. So Balthazar picked that up, and it like gives you maximum HP. And the way that it is, that the item description talks about, it's conditional XP. It's like, oh, you must be within a dragon's flight of like this lake in East Haven for you to get the HP. I thought that was a nice touch.
That's rad.
Yeah.
That's like a cool... That's sweet. I like that. That's a cool thing to like put into a fantasy game.
Yes, it is. But anyway, it's... that's that, and you can free some other folks.
Yep, I freed all the people from the Cyclopses, and I think you have to, because that's so basically what's happening here is what's the guy's name? The East Haven dude? I don't know. I didn't write his name down, but the priest who's there, who you talk to at the beginning of the game, he's like,
who becomes very important.
Yeah, well, he's a priest of Tempest, and he's like the dude who's always been taking care of. You remember Jared? And I said I was going to be pissed off if Jared didn't come back in some way. Well, Jared's back. And he matters here at the end.
Yeah.
So he basically is like, hey, here's the deal. Crinchinaban, this big crystal tower just booped up right above the tomb where Jared is like, in his big stone formation thing, because if you remember all the way back to the prologue, Jared was this like barbarian guy. He there was a wizard who was doing all kinds of bad shit, summoning evil entities in, and basically Jared sacrifices his life to grab the stone that's doing the summoning, and in doing so, it like turns him, it freezes him in carbonite basically. But his like eternal sacrifice is what holds this gateway or this item at bay. And so theoretically, if one broke the stone or like, magically penetrated this whole deal, it would unleash, the abyss or some stuff. I don't know the specifics here. And he's like, hey, that's going to happen. FYI, we got to go in there. And so he knows how to get inside Crinchinaban. He takes us in. We're going to, and he's like, we got to go down into the tomb below it. But there's seals. I can't break through the seals. I'm just a priest of Tempest. I'm going to try. Why don't you go up the tower, see if they're down in there since they've sealed it up, and then see if you can figure out a way to go and do it.
Yes.
And then we go do that. But wouldn't you know it? You go upstairs, and guess who's there?
Our little favorite Calamshite.
Oh, He is from Calamsham.
Because in the prologue, the guy who's organized the caravan was like, oh, you know, those shifty Calamshite folks.
Damn.
Yeah.
I totally didn't put that, but you're right. That is, yeah, he's a huge asshole.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that in the episode. Lo and behold, he still is.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'm the dude who did this whole thing. He's like, I knew that if there were adventurers around in East Haven, they would be able to do something about this. And so I set up the expedition to go to Kuldahar to like go and do all that stuff and, you know, get attacked by frost giants, all that stuff. I set it up to take all the adventurers out of here so that this could happen. Mm-hmm. Bing, bang, boom. I'm Pomab. I'm a huge... He's mean to you the whole time.
Mean to you the whole time. You can go back and listen to our episode on the prologue of the intersection of real-life racism and stereotypes and them bleeding into the Forgotten Realms here, but obviously...
That we recorded 6 full months ago.
6 full months ago.
From where we are recording right now.
But yeah, obvious, you know, the Calamshite, the shifty merchant character... Turns out he's also, in addition to being just like a mean shopkeeper, also like a core villain here at the very end. And
he has a cool boss fight.
He does have an interesting boss fight that's a little bit puzzly. So he summons some like little guardian golem things, and he pops into like there's a bunch of duplicates, but when you hold down tab and look at their name, they all look like Pomab. But when you attack certain ones and you read the combat text, you will see either false Pomab or Pomab, and that's how you can like figure out which one of these things is real. So fun little fight, I guess. It was a little annoying at first, but got there. Especially annoying with like the AI, because my people are not doing what I tell them to do.
Yes. I think I took more swings at this than I did the previous fight. Just because I had to kind of figure it out, like you were saying, that, you can kind of determine false Pomab from real Pomab. You don't really kill Pomab. You just hit the real one and then he teleports somewhere and then you got to run over and hit him. And you got to keep doing, you got to do that like 6 times or something.
Yeah.
And then you can kill him. And that whole time, there's like cursed elemental skeletons beating your ass the whole time. And so it's not great. But I thought it was a cool puzzle design. You know, maybe the full, you know, whatever solution isn't there. You know, the execution isn't all the way there. But I thought it was cool. And then you do that and you go up a ladder. Crinchinabon's there. It's like hanging out. And there's a portal that takes you down to, and you like can't interact with Crinchinabon, unfortunately. But then there's a portal takes you all the way down into Jared's tomb, and there's this Pocolin. He's there. He narrates a little bit more to you. We had a conversation, and I was like, "Hey, dude, Crinchinabon has betrayed you. Like, I would not have been able to get here to attack you if the Crystal Shard attacked me.
Did not will it."
Yeah, didn't let it happen. We're inside of a thing it made, right? Like, how could this happen? Now, an astute reader of the Companions of the Hall novels would know that quite often people are able to get inside of the Crystal Shard's towers and do all kinds of goofery. It happens literally almost in every book.
Sure.
And the reason for that, of course, is that Crinchinabon is full of hubris. It doesn't believe at the end of the day that anything bad could happen to it, like that it could be destroyed or that its crystal towers could be torn down. And, you know, it's just, it's hubris takes it down. So, well, you know, I don't know if this holds up to canon necessarily.
Tell me, compare and contrast, which is cooler? Crinchinabon, the One Ring.
Oh, Crinchinabon, no question. Crinchinabon's like a dude.
Yeah, Crinchinabon, because the One Ring is ultimately just like a vessel almost, like the will
right.
of
or, you know,
another
this
entity.
It's also kind of like a tin can on a string in some ways, right? Like it lets Sauron know about stuff, and it's cool. Like I'm not, you know, it makes people go invisible. You know, there's this cost to using it. All that stuff is interesting. Crinchinabon's definitely a ripoff of that, or like in conversation with. I think starts as kind of a ripoff from that and becomes something that's much more interesting. That's probably the best way to put it. But yeah, it's like its own character. It's got its own, you know, due to D&D rules stuff, it gets its own kind of writing. and it just loves making crystal towers. It can't help but make crystal towers. And did you know that the thing that brings heroes and adventurers running every time is seeing a huge fuck off 100-story crystal tower everywhere?
Yeah.
So that's part of the fun of it too. Is it's like, it's not, they're not building Minas Tirith everywhere.
Yeah.
Anytime someone puts on the ring, but anytime someone uses the crystal shard at the end of that rainbow, they're putting up a big crystal tower.
It's true.
And
I have to, because I've been looking at my footage as we've been talking. Do you remember what the Pomab boss fight arena is? Like what the back?
It's a room full of mirrors.
Yes, and there's like electricity that shoots from mirror to mirror occasionally.
Oh, I thought maybe he was like shooting me with a spell or something, because there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is a lot going on, but I'm pretty sure it's like that is the arena. But very cool.
I initially thought that you had to like smash the mirrors or something, like the Conan, smash the mirrors fight. It's not. This is clearly playing off of that, but it's not quite what you end up doing. But anyway, so you talk to this dude, and I actually I have a really interesting story about this, but I want to hear, how did the final fight go for you? Because this is the final fight. He tells you all this stuff. You kind of roast him a little bit, and he's like, all right, let's make it happen.
He says, I'm unsealing, I'm cracking this buddy open.
Yep.
And Jared gets, he like unpetrifies him immediately, and like the portal is open. He's like, oh boy, we're getting Blood War round 2. Let's go.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And the priest, whose name we can't remember.
The Priest of Tempest.
The Priest of Tempest, who was only introduced, 2 seconds ago. His name's Everard.
Everard.
And he is like, you know what? I've been thinking a lot about Jared's sacrifice, and you know what? There's something to it. And he just like rolls up, and the Reverend hits him with a piddling amount of fire damage on the way up, and Everard reseals it in the same fashion as Jared did. And Reverend Brother Pelican says, it's fine. Like, it took me a while to do the ritual to unseal this. I can do it again. It's fine. And the fight begins. The fight begins with him dispelling all of the effects on your party. So if you were hasted and, and blessed and all of that, you're not anymore. And it's a pretty tough fight. There's some iron golems that come in from the side. And I think that I give it maybe 3 tries. Brother Pelican turns immediately into a, Yogg-Sanume-esque kind of big creature with scimitars.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And
because he says, I think right before this, right? He says, oh no, it's in the last one. Sorry. But he's like, the reason Yogg-Sanume is like all up in my shit all the time is that we've been rivals for like millennia. Yeah. And I came to the prime material plane, and of course she came to like mess me up. So yeah, he's like of the same, I forget what his like demon species is, but he's a demon.
Mm-hmm. So I think the first fight is tough because I don't have anybody hasted and I'm not able to like get the party together. But the fight that was successful to me is I'm like, okay, I'm going to start and everyone is going to be not buffed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off AI and just direct everyone to Belahat, who, the Reverend Brother becomes Belahat after this. So I'm going to direct everyone to come. I'm going to have my sorcerer just cast haste with everyone directly surrounding him. So everybody gets hasted. While they're doing that, I'm going to have the cleric cast chant. And then I'm just going to manually AI off, everybody attacks. Mm-hmm. He starts taking one by one. They start going down. And it comes to it's only Balthazar and Gale the Archer up. Balthazar takes a hit. And I'm like, I know that in my first fight, I switched Gale to the +3 arrows. I look at Gale's inventory. She's had the +1 arrows this entire time. I switch her to the +3 arrows. She's the only one up. And her next shot, she kills him. And that is the fight for me.
So I had a similar, like, weird fight go on, right? So I'm like, because he summoned some creatures, so I'm doing all kinds of stuff. You know, my normal stuff. I'm summoning enemy, or, you know, summoning monsters, getting things in. I've got all kinds of stuff going on at this point as far as, like, high-level monsters I can summon. There's a much wider variety of stuff you can summon in this game than there was in, like, Baldur's Gate 2 or Throne of Ball, which is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
But I'm doing that. Tony Monsters has got a staff of conjuring that I don't really use very often that summons, like, Monster Summoning 6 and I think an Invisible Stalker. And I have 15 charges of that still going. And so
He's just
and it's instant.
Bam.
Well, and it's instant. So as soon as something dies, yeah, I'm using it again. And so I'm like summoning like big Yetis and stuff. It's like boss monster looking shit. And so similar deal. He's like walking through and he's like chopping my dudes up. My front line gone, you know, one by one. It's just my cleric who's hanging around and Tony Monsters because everyone else has been killed. And this thing's at like 2 pips of 5 pips or whatever. And so I was like, all right, I'm just going to play it out, right? Like I'm going to play it out because this is clearly in the end of the game. It doesn't matter after this. I can go down to everyone can be dead. Who cares? So every time a monster dies, I just summon a new monster. And they're like fighting him legitimately. They're not getting 2-shotted or something. They are legitimately having a fight. My cleric goes down. Tony Monsters is here at the end of the game, summoning monster after monster and throwing it at the end of the game boss. And eventually those monsters kill the end game.
Yes.
It was like the best payoff of all time.
No, it couldn't have been anything else. And the fact that it worked is that's good design. I feel like so often, and I feel this sometimes in Elden Ring, to be honest. I feel like so often it's like, you know what, we're going to let you pursue like a variety of strategies for, 99% of the game. But on the final boss, nah, you got to do it one way. We're not going to let you just summon monsters.
Yeah, it's the classic kind of like Final Fantasy problem of like, there's all these cool status effects, but lo and behold, 90% of bosses are immune to 90% of them.
Yeah.
And they're all, weak to one of them. And so you get to the final boss and it's like, oh, nope, their resistances or their immunities for everything is way up. And so if you like playing with poison or bio or whatever, and adding that to your attacks in Final Fantasy VII, well, good on you, but that's not going to be an efficient strategy here. But yeah, no, I kind of felt like I could do whatever I wanted to here. And that really wasn't the case necessarily. I think you felt that pain, this particular pain more than I did on like Baldur's Gate 2 and Throne of Ball of like, Irenicus has just got a lot of magical protection and you got to figure out ways to get rid of that. And I think, for the Baldur's Gate 2 fight for that, I think the way you resolved that was like with time and like running away and like waiting for things to rub off or whatever. And for me playing with a full party, that was often like line up your magical, defense attacks, your breaches, your chaos words, your, whatever, all of that stuff, secret word, do all that stuff. And then you can maybe fight the boss, right? After like a person goes down or something. So yeah, this was kind of refreshing in that it was like, this is a boss with a lot of hit points and a lot of tools in its, bat belt, demon belt. But you have all your tools and they're probably all valid. Yeah. So go for it. And I thought that was really cool.
Just a super fair fight overall.
Yep. Felt like it.
And it ends when you don't have to kill the ads. It ends when his final HP is depleted. And we get, as you said at the beginning, a pretty rad stinger.
It's rad as all hell.
So we get the narrator's voice, who's doing like a pretty generic code of the game about how everything goes back to normal, and then he starts getting really angry, and he's like, "And Bellahet is confined to the 9," and he's like getting angry and angrier, and it's just
like, yeah, once a demon is killed on the prime material plane. By the way, this is also, I just got to get in here. This is like the main like crunch point for the demon that Drizzt Do'Urden kills multiple times over the course of like the first 6 books. Is that when a demon dies on the prime material plane, they are banished back to the abyss for 100 years, and that he's so pissed off about that. And so that's like the big plot driver. So all Icewind Dale is constantly being like, hey, you remember all those novels you liked a lot? You remember those? We have that stuff too. We got Crunchinabon in it. But anyway, all to say, yes,
the narrator, the entire time who's been flipping
and
the pages.
He's been talking like this the whole time. He's been talking like a guy in a fantasy novel.
Slightly younger Gorion.
Yes. Gorion's younger brother, Borion.
And sure enough, it was Bellahet the whole time.
It's so great. He starts yelling and shit, and it's very clear what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, there's no ambiguity. Like, oh, it's that guy. He's bad. Oh, that's fun. And it like zooms in on a candle, and the candles blow out. And then we get this reverse shot of him.
And just the green eyes, the green glowing eyes of his silhouette as he goes for like the maniacal laughter.
Mm-hmm. And then he turns into the demon too.
Because they were like, just in case you were, this isn't just any evil guy. This is that evil guy.
Yeah, it feels like that. It feels like that someone played this game and they got to the end and they were like, so is that just an evil guy or what? And they're like, all right, we're going to have to make it clear. We're going to have to add a name tag to this dude. And that's it. That's the game. So, it's great.
Are you higher on the possibility of Icewind Dale 2 after this?
That's interesting. Does it have anything to do with this game? Or is it just like another run?
I am not sure. I know that the villains are different.
Well, yeah. That's interesting.
The main antagonists.
I don't know. Yeah, because it's not on Steam, right? And there's no enhanced edition.
There is no enhanced edition. It is on GOG. It seems playable from my experience with it, but it is like you're interacting with the UI, with an older non-enhanced edition UI.
Oh, wow, the spell systems. Like, the whole system is completely different from... It is. So it looks like it's...
This is the wild part, right? So Icewind Dale 2 comes out, and it is like... It is melding 3rd edition stuff into the Infinity Engine.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's also what Baldur's Gate 2 did.
A little bit, but I think that, like, Icewind Dale 2, in terms of, like, the weird... stuff with races and like the spell casting systems, there's some weird stuff. They also have a much wider spectrum. Like you can make a drow adventurer and they have this huge XP penalty.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, because that's kind of how they were done in the books. I don't know. I haven't purchased this before. I'll buy it. I'll play a little bit of it and we'll see what's up. I am hesitant to fight through this when there's like other games that are contemporaneous with it that might be more interesting for us to like do a short season on. I'm thinking about like Arcanum.
Yeah,
it's a game we've talked about a lot. That's kind of not quite this type of game, but kind of in that zone. I don't know. I'll buy it and I'll play a little bit of it, and then we can make a call.
Yeah, let's do that. But overall, fun season. Mages and Murderdads, once again fun. After our long, we've had a long and winding road, and
yeah. We really did kind of the double whammy of a game that you hated that killed the show, and then a game that just had Disco Elysium. I'm glad we did it, but maybe it has too much going on.
A lot of baggage,
a lot of baggage, a lot of stuff to dig through, and I just don't think people like hearing that in a very basic way. Which is not a criticism of anyone.
I know I have made my thoughts known about Sudoku and various other things.
Yeah.
If you didn't like the ending of Icewind Dale, if you saw that and you were like, "This is bad," I don't appreciate that personally.
Wow, big statements here. Yeah, but okay. Well, but to bring it all back without getting too in the weeds about Mages and Murderdads seasonal history. I like that we're back in our lane.
Okay.
Right? This actually made me excited for Baldur's Gate 3, even though that's going to be a living nightmare.
A living nightmare that will happen when I turn 45?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's gonna take a minute. I think we have 2 more years before that game comes out.
That's wild.
I think it is going to be 2024. I have no knowledge that no one else has.
Are we
It's
like
just my cold shot.
it's over a year since the beta was? I mean, like 2 years since the beta's been out.
It might be a year and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I said at that time it was going to be 2 years. So I basically, it's like the thing from Snatch of when the sausage is done 5 minutes. We are always 2 years away from Baldur's Gate 3 coming out, which is cool. Take your time. I'm not in a hurry. Like, shout out to them. They can do whatever they want to be doing. They've been making a game during, a lot of weird stuff. The Snide administration has been sending everyone pool noodles, to use in the community pools that we've all had built over the past year and a half, and I think that's super cool. And people should be taking the time to use the pool noodles.
I think it's a better expenditure than military spending, which is where it came from the budget. So yes. Look, we took 50% of the military budget out, and we put 50% of the money into community pools and pool noodles. So, I think they should do that. I think it's great that we've been building pool noodles across Europe, or pools and giving pool noodles to people across Europe, and which is, where, of course, that studio is located. So take your time on Baldur's Gate 3. Have all the fun you need. Happy to do that. And I'm not in a hurry for it. But yeah, so maybe in the middle here we'll do Arcanum, which I know some people have wanted us to check out, and I'm interested in. Maybe we'll look at Icewind Dale too. I need to install it and see if I can just get in the headspace to do this. I got through Fallout 1 and 2, but that was, a struggle. But, okay, cool. Well, thanks so much to everyone for listening to this for the season. We'll be back at some point in the future, maybe over the summer, maybe afterward. And, in some other time, I don't think we're going to have a bonus episode on this or any kind of interview episode or anything like that. So that's the end of this season of Mages and Murderdads. And we'll be back in the future. Until next time, ciao.
The Lord of Murder shall perish, but in his doom he shall spawn a score of mortal progeny. Chaos will be sown from their passage, so saith the wise Gallardo.